I think of the 10th Doctor, he reminds me a lot of the 5th Doctor in a lot of ways. And the fact that the 5th Doctor gave off this sort of cool older brother figure that, all your friends hang out with him. They come to visit you just to see what he is doing. The girl, you're like, oh no, she's here to see him. And everyone wants to talk about his car. They're both sort of very dashing heroes in a lot of ways. They're sort of the one you would pick to be the royal. Well, maybe not the 5th Doctor so much the more you think about him. But they both sort of have that sort of cool vibe about them the more you think about it. And they're also very human. They also were the two doctors who had, in my opinion, the largest TARDIS teams. The 5th Doctor had Adric, had Nyssa, Tegan, Turlo, and the 10th Doctor is usually associated with actually all of his companions at once, primarily because they kept meeting up. So he had Mickey, Rose, Martha, Donna, Jackie, Sarah Jane, Jack, all of them. So there's a lot to be said about that, but oddly enough, I like the 5th Doctor a lot more than I like the 10th Doctor, and I think it comes down to the fact that out of all the incarnations, the 10th Doctor seems to be, I think, the most arrogant, in my opinion. Which is saying a lot, because if you really sit down with each Doctor, they each think a lot of themselves. They really do. They do. Each incarnation thinks it's the best incarnation ever. But there was something about the 10th Doctor's sort of role as an authority figure. At one point, he did sort of imply that he was the highest authority. This is where like the Army of Ghosts, when in front of Torchwood, it's like, no, if I don't like it, it gets shut down. And of course, in School Reunion, where it gives the whole one warning thing, and ultimately culminating in the Time Lord Victorious of Waters of Mars, where we see exactly what happens when the Doctor gets, in my opinion, too full of himself. And that's sort of echoed again in A Good Man Goes to War, but that was at least more argued for righteous anger that had been pushed too far, and that was a culmination of his entire life. At the end of the day, I do like the 10th Doctor when he's allowed to just sort of be played as cool and funny, especially one of my favorite moments is with the Poison Sky and the Sontaran stratagem, when he talks about the Sontarans and he just like dismantles, he just knocks one out with the greatest of ease. That's great. Oh, when he's meeting the 5th Doctor in Time Crunch, like, go ahead, Doctor. And he just sort of has his own fun with it. At the same time, though, I think that also comes with his greatest weakness. So when things don't go right, or things deviate from it, he gets a bit arrogant, he gets a bit angry. And that sort of hurts and helps. I think it's all part of the idea of the arc, that the Doctor from the time we're on is sort of still trying to deal with it, as the moment called him the man who regrets. So, and I think a lot of what impacted this incarnation of the Doctor was the failings of the 9th Doctor led to him regenerating. Because the 9th Doctor, I think, was mostly his greatest fault, I think, was his lack of action. He would sort of get involved, but not fully commit to getting involved. Not really sort of asserting any form of authority in the room. But with the 10th Doctor, it went a bit further. There was also a sense of sanctimony to it. Like the idea of the whole gun thing, the man who never would, or the fact that, again, in the Poison Sky Sontaran strategy, talks about, I don't like people with guns, you've got a gun next to me, go away. I'm like, but the Brigadier had guns. Yeah. Okay, and the 3rd Doctor didn't always, the 4th Doctor did. I mean, where do we draw a line here? And I think the problem with that was the sort of fake moral high ground. And we could argue that this is, again, brought on as a result of the Time War. But I like the 11th Doctor's approach to guns a bit better. He finds them silly and is like, hold on, we don't need to use these if we can just go with this route and we'll be fine. Weeping Angels, oh no, lock and load. Lock and load. I don't know what it's going to do, but I'd rather have them so we can shoot blindly at them to buy us time. But when I look at the 10th Doctor's era, I think we should really remember the companions a bit more than the Doctor. Because I think the companions here really sort of defined exactly what direction the series was going in, because each era, each companion season, sort of gave you different relationship with the Doctor. And this is primarily because Russell T Davies, who was showrunner at the time, he's really big on character more than he is story. I say he doesn't tell good stories, but his strong suit has always been character for the most part. Whereas Stephen Moffat was big on story, and character second. Hopefully, Chibnall will be that happy middle ground we've been looking for. When it comes to Rose, the 10th Doctor Rose, it's my least favorite interaction with this Doctor. Primarily because there's never any real thing of interest going on. I think those were some of the weakest episodes, primarily just because they spend more time just goofing around and laughing at everything than anything else. I'm like, okay, where's the tension? Like, it just sort of gets dull. And the only time Rose is interesting during that point is when there's another girl showing up, Madame de Pompadour, Sarah Jane, especially Sarah Jane, and it just sort of got really, really cute and annoying. It was kind of gross. It was so sweet, it felt a bit diabetic. That's how bad it was. And we've got to that whole moment with, then came Torchwood, then came the Army of Ghosts. I'm Rose Tyler. This is how I died. And then she didn't die. I felt a bit cheated. And then we go to the sort of how the relationship changed between Rose and the 10th Doctor as opposed to Rose and the Ninth Doctor. With the Ninth Doctor, Rose was very much sort of this student that the Doctor was taking on. And she learned about a bigger world, learned about caring, learned how important it is to help people. The Doctor made her a better person. And the 10th Doctor, now that he's yummy, it's like, yeah. And I think that was sort of a mistake in a lot of ways, at least from my perspective. Then we got to Martha Jones, and love Martha, love her to death. Um, she was a great departure from Rose in a lot of ways, because even though they were both girl from present day Earth, Martha sort of came into the series with, her own sort of preconceived notions of how the world's supposed to work and her own ideas, and the Doctor sort of flips those on its head. And the only thing that really hurt Martha's run, I think, was the fact that she was effectively in love with the 10th Doctor and sort of had to play second wheel to him, constantly talking about Rose. Oh, yeah, we're in bed together, and, we should talk about Rose. We should talk about Rose. And that was a bit much, although some of her stories, I think, were a bit better than Rose's, primarily because when that romance wasn't going on, they were really just sort of, a tourist hanging around with someone who's been on the ride 1,000 times. Then we got to the 10th Doctor and Donna, and that was great because there was no romance whatsoever, and they just had this really great comedy duo between the two of them. It was great. It was brilliant. Catherine Tate breathed in a lot of ways, new life into the series just because of how they changed the dynamic. Then, of course, we go to Mickey and Jack. Captain Jack honestly didn't have anything to do in the new era for the most part. Like, he showed up, just like, hey, I'm here, I've been looking for the Doctor, and then he left. And then, of course, Mickey finally got something to do after school reunion. He wasn't just this guy that Rose had sort of not dumped. He'd resolved to stay in this different universe. We got not a lot, but we got a really cool insight into his backstory about the death of his grandmother, which I felt was really necessary for Mickey to just sort of have a personality outside of Rose, something that makes him him. And that's what I think really worked about it. And of course, Sarah Jane, who helped breathe a lot of new life into the expanded part of Doctor Who. Like, for a lot of people who were new to Doctor Who, she was the sort of gateway, like, hey, there's stuff way beyond just 9, 10, soon to be 11 and 12. No. They're numbers. Like, that dude in the black coat, he was number 9. There are 8 more. At least 8 more other dudes. Alright? They're all cool. I also think that the 10th Doctor's era had a lot of really great villains. I think this is primarily because the 9th Doctor's era, the best villain was honestly the Daleks. I think that goes without saying. Oh, the Are You My Mummy bit, which wasn't really a monster or an enemy. We got a Cyberman head, but that was pretty much it. The 10th Doctor's era, we saw the return of the Cybermen, which was great. The Sontarans, love Sontarans. And of course, Davros and the Master. And while I don't really like Sim's Master that much. I like when he actually has a purpose. Like, he was a bit better in The End of Time than he was in the other two. And I think he was a bit much. And it's weird because I think Missy handles being a bit much better than Sim did. But out of the Masters we saw from the Utopia onward, I think the best version of the Master has to be Jack and his Master, because he felt like a real return to classic evil. Just loved it. Like, I'm the master. And then he killed his assistant. Loved it. Just great. And he wore that suit like a boss. Loved it. Ultimately, I think the 10th Doctor can be summed up in honestly his first episode, the Christmas Invasion, where he sort of hits every one of his beats before we do anything else. And it's sort of interesting that he hasn't really changed from the Christmas Invasion to the end of time. You know, in the Christmas Invasion, we see how dedicated he is to protecting Rose, how devil may care and confident he is in the face of impossible odds, how knowledgeable he is about gun control. You're controlling all the A positives, and then of course the desire to fight, the ability to think on his feet, and then of course the fact no second chance. He's that kind of man now. And then also his treatment of Harriet Jones, the fact that not only did he, depose Harriet Jones with a whisper because effectively she didn't agree with him, or rather more appropriately, she'd already made a decision before he fixed it. And even in a parallel universe, he's telling people to, watch out for Harriet Jones, which just sort of, I think it summed up everything that was negative about the 10th Doctor. So we got the full range of the 10th Doctor in his first episode. So coming up to best and worst episodes, Fear Her. Fear Her is bad because, well, in my opinion, because it doesn't quite, it's not willing to really commit to it. The subject matter is really a family dealing with an abusive father, but it doesn't quite delve into enough. It doesn't have the acting for it, doesn't have the proper scripts to deal with it. Next is Love and Monsters. Love and Monsters didn't need a monster. This could have honestly just been a clip show. Could have been a clip show, and I hate clip shows. But imagine if this just had been sort of a meta-analysis of just a bunch of people who met through, hey, there was this thing going on. I saw a dude run into a blue box, and there was a girl with him, and all these people meet because of it. And then you still get your couples thing, and then you could even throw in a monster, but it doesn't have to be like the main thing going on. Daleks in Manhattan, primarily because I don't get it. Like, I get the idea, the Daleks, wanting to evolve, or more specifically, a specific cult of Daleks trying to be better. I don't get why the time period was chosen, and the tentacle face. We don't ever have to go back there again. Planet of the Dead, because I still have no idea what the point of Planet of the Dead was. 1 minute we're on a bus, then we're in the desert. There's a dude there's a fly man in a jumpsuit, and I don't get it. I don't get it. Why is Lady Christina getting an audio box? Why? I don't get it. Voyage of the Damned, because oh my god, it's like the only good thing about Voyage of the Damned is the Titanic reference and the tour guide and the little red alien. Just gonna say it. And Alonzi Alonso. That's sort of it. It's one of those episodes where it just has a lot of really fun moments, but when you put them all together in the story, you just sort of like, what's the point of that? And wrapping up, The Doctor's Daughter. Yes, I'm sorry, I do not like The Doctor's Daughter. The story makes no sense. Why does the Doctor's clone is a girl when everyone else is a boy? And the whole I never would thing, and the fact that we're sort of, it's just weird. And maybe I'll change my mind if I actually do enjoy the Doctor's Daughter audio plays on Big Finish. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll look back on the Doctor and I say, well, you know what? It wasn't perfect, but it gave us these audio plays. I highly doubt I will. But whatever. And finally, The End of Time. So The End of Time is just, I'm sorry, it's awful. It is. It is. The Time Lords are weird. It's nice to see Rassilon back, to be fair. I don't know why everyone's a Pridonian. I don't know why everyone's wearing Pridonian red. The fact that the 10th Doctor is complaining to Wilf about how when he dies he gets a new body is just sort of gross. It's just sort of, it's a bit uncomfortable to some extent. Like, he's trying to hammer a point, but all I'm seeing is you're complaining to an old man about how you're going to get a new body when you die. And then at the end we just have all this sad lookings on at everyone. You're like, hey, I helped Sarah Jane's son. Now I'm going to look sad at Sarah Jane. Hey, I helped Mickey and Martha. I'm going to look sad. Hey, I'm looking at Captain Jack. I'm introduced to Alonzo. I'm going to look sad. I'm implying I'm going to die. Yeah. I'm just going to regenerate, guys. Technically, I'm fine. And on to best episodes, Christmas Invasion. Because, well, it does everything. I think it sort of harkens back to the third Doctor's first story, where he spends a good portion of the episode in bed, well, the story in bed, and then he just sort of comes up and is just ready to fix the problem. Although the third Doctor's first story is actually a bit more complex than that, and it's just fun, especially when the 10th Doctor comes out of the tower and starts going into a Lion King spiel, and it's pretty much sort of introducing new fans to the concept of regeneration that, I don't quite know who I am yet. Blink is honestly here just because it's a really well-made episode. It's not my favorite Weeping Angel story. It's actually maybe my third. Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead, because, well, it's just awesome. It introduces River's song. Donna has more great moments to it. And, of course, we're on a library that's actually a planet that is a library. And we have an enemy that we can't really beat. We just sort of run from it and try to find a way to make it go somewhere else. Family of Blood. Family of Blood is just really, really good. Like, oh my god. Like, the Fury of the Time Lord is the 10th Doctor's best time of being angry. There's no loud, boisterous noises. There's no weird declarations like, no, we're done here. We're done here. And it sort of brought home the idea that despite how much fun it is to be the Doctor, the person who least wants to be the Doctor is the Doctor. I love that. Girl in the Fireplace, because it's a really fun little prelude to the 11th Hour, of the Doctor meeting a young girl and effectively just imprinting on her, but she also has an impact on him. And I think that's really where the real meat of that story came from. It became this really interesting character bit, and of course, there's Rose feeling all sorts of weird about it. And finally, one of my personal favorites, and I think it's a lot of other people, so it's not special, School Reunion, the return of Sarah Jane, Mickey through the interactions with Sarah Jane and K9 sort of puts himself up front. He's like, I want to travel with you guys. I want to be part of the team. And Sarah Jane has an impact on everyone, on the Doctor, on Rose. Some of actually Rose's best moments is when she and Sarah Jane just sort of like trying to prove which one of them is, better with the Doctor, has done more with the Doctor. And technically Sarah Jane would have won because, Rose met the Dalek Emperor, but Sarah Jane met Davros. Like, Davros even mentions her in the Stolen Earth parting of the way, so like, Sarah Jane. He's over the moon about it. And especially the bits when Sarah Jane and Rose are talking about the Doctor, like, just like stroke bits of the TARDIS. It's like it was just fun. It was great. Really, really fun episode, and also had a lot of heart to it. Oh, and finally, Time Crash. Anytime multiple Doctors meet, it's usually going to be higher up on my list, unless the story is just terrible. This was fun. This was short. Peter Davison looked like he really hadn't aged a day, really. Well, maybe a little bit, but it was still fun. It was great. It had a lot of heart to it. It was David Tennant fangasming over his Doctor. It was great. And, well, that's it for this review or retrospective on the 10th Doctor. If there's something you liked or didn't like about the 10th Doctor, leave that down in the comments section. Feel free to check out some of my other retrospectives on Doctor Who, and I will catch you all later. This is Debugging Think Tank signing off. May your fandom serve you well.